Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 46. We're getting really close to the magic 52 number. That's 1 week of straight covering Rocket Lab every freaking week. This week was a really special week because it felt like nothing was happening. And then the last 2 days of the week, we were up more than 30% for no reason. And then after market close, when me and Matt were doing a celebration live, full of news came out of the space industry and Rocket Lab. One of them was that we didn't get the SDA contract. So there is actually a super lot to go over on this episode, both in the space industry and Rocket Lab. So welcome everyone. We have Scotto here and Matt Money with us. How are you guys, and how have your week been? How has your week? I can't speak. Whatever. You understood the question.
Doing well. It's been a really interesting week, especially Thursday, Friday. Sure, we'll get into.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. Even though the market, I guess now the SPY's within a couple percent back of all-time highs. The portfolio for me is also back at all-time highs, which is nice because I do have some triple leveraged items in the portfolio that took a big hit in early August when everything took a hit. But yeah, within 1% of all-time highs for me in the portfolio. And Rocket Lab with its move has made it an obvious number 2 in the portfolio, and it almost passed Palantir this past week. So cool to say.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Vince? Yeah. How was your week?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy on many fronts. As I said to Matt, like usually in my life, oh my God, Curtis, thank you so much. In my life, somehow, like, you know, the good news come all at the same time, and then somehow also the bad news come all at the same time. I don't know. It's like when it rains, it pours. I think that's that's the saying, you know. And to Venus. All right, thank you. After 1984, yeah. And you know, I have a real estate company, and we have been struggling. I'm not gonna say we are still struggling, because on Friday we had an investor meeting, and you know, like the market opens late in my day, so it's not synced with the day. So I checked in the morning, and I saw Rocket Lab was up like 2%. And then I went into this investor meeting. It was a very long meeting. I came out at like 5 p.m. I think. And then I opened the phone and I saw Rocket Lab was up 20%, and I was like, shit, this day is like amazing on so many levels. So yeah. And you guys know that I'm accidentally assigned 40,000 shares of Rocket Lab on margin that I didn't want to give up. And I have had, what do you call it? You know, like I grew some gray hairs when the stock was going down, but on these up days, they they feel really good. So cool. I think we get into the Rocket Lab news, because there has been some interesting Rocket Lab news this week, and then we really need to get into Wall Street bets, the stock price, that we didn't get the SDA contract, and some space industry things that have happened. So the first news, that we're going to start with is that Rocket Lab shipped out the Escapade satellites to Florida. And I was looking at on Yahoo Finance, what news there were about Rocket Lab, and Yahoo Finance thinks that this is what triggered the stock price moving up. I don't think it is the one, but I'm curious, like, what do you guys think? How significant is this for Rocket Lab? And yeah.
I think it's rather significant. I think it might so far be the most publicized of the missions. I think there was a lot of chat when Capstone went around, and that was obviously a mission to help support the moon and NASA and their endeavors there. But I think that this one will likely have a little bit more publicity, knowing that it's New Glenn, knowing that it's also Mars, which I think everyone has their eyes on. And I think with that, hopefully people recognize that it's not just a good thing for Blue Origin if they get New Glenn off the ground, but it's also going to be a good thing for the people creating the satellite, which is obviously Rocket Lab. So hopefully people continue to hear Rocket Lab, Rocket Lab, Rocket Lab, and they actually associate it with the brand, they associate it with the company, and it starts to dig a little bit more rather than what we've seen maybe over the past several years, which, Rocket Lab has sent things to asteroids nearing Jupiter and many other places, but they haven't really, I think, made the connection as of yet. So I think this will hopefully be another opportunity to keep that brand going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good for Rocket Lab for sure, in terms of like visibility, even if Blue Origin isn't successful, even just to be like, hey, we're heading to Mars and it didn't go well, but it's not our problem that it didn't go well, kind of a thing. And I mean, it's 10 times better if Blue Origin is successful for Rocket Lab, because then it's like, yeah, we went to the moon and we're going to Mars and we're planning for Venus. What's everyone else doing, kind of a thing. So I don't think that's what caused the stock pump personally, but I'm sure it didn't hurt it at all.
Yeah, good way to put that.
Yeah. By the way, did you guys see Everyday Astronaut's video about the Blue Origin factory tour?
Just the first 10 minutes. I'm really upset I didn't finish it. But Jeff, I was actually looking at Jeff while he was explaining. It wasn't. It was the Shepard rocket. It wasn't New Glenn. When you just walk into their office, they have the first one that's landed like 4 or 5 times. Yeah. And I was actually very surprised. And unfortunately, this is all I have to say about that tour. He was he knows his shit. I was actually surprised, right? I mean, I was expecting more about like manufacturing and things like that, but the fact that he knew a lot more about the space terminology was very impressive.
Yeah,
I'm hoping to watch that tonight. And my understanding is there's a part 2 that's going to be more New Glenn related. Is that right?
They did cover a lot of New Glenn on this one. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping to watch that tonight. Sounds good from what I've heard.
Yeah, but
is Blue Origin have shares on the market? Somebody's saying they want to become an accredited investor so they could buy. I don't even know if Blue Origin.
I actually don't know. I thought that it was 100% financed by Mr. Jeff Bezos,
Okay.
But I was surprised about 3 things. One of them is how good Jeff Bezos looked. I mean, like if you look at the space CEOs, I mean, you have Elon, you have Sir Peter Beck, and I think that Elon is like in the worst health, and then you have Sir Peter Beck. I mean, he's looking quite good, but he's not buff, and like Jeff Bezos, he was looking very nice and fit. And then on top of it, he, as you said, he really knew his stuff. I was also surprised on that. And I don't know why, because, you never see him in interviews and you don't see the factory and you only hear like they've never been to orbit. So I was like, okay, they're like this unserious attempt, and then somehow like when you see the factory and what they're building, it becomes like, okay, these guys are a very, very serious and heavy competitor. Like no matter what anybody says, like they're definitely not going away. It's a huge question mark for me, like how come they have not reached orbit yet? I would really like to ask Jeff Bezos that, but yeah, it's very impressive what they have created there.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Matt? You're like cracking up there in the corner.
I'm just looking at the
comment section or
the comments. Yeah.
Okay. That's where all the fun is. Okay, we go to the next one, and that is this one, which also came out yesterday. Could have helped the stock price, where they detail more than 100 plus engine and stand readiness tests have been completed at our Archimedes engine test site in Mississippi, including multiple hot fires and engine install and operation systems are validated. So obviously it feels like this hot fire and Archimedes engine is like a huge done, and it's behind us, and it's like not how do you call it? Like it's not an item anymore on the list that are holding Neutron back. What do you guys think the significance of this is?
What do you think, Matt?
Very significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, there was a lot of people speculating that it blew up, and I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's nice to see. I think there were some what's the word I'm looking for? Some criticism that there's. I mean, everyone's looking at the Raptor version 3 now and how sleek it is, and everyone is kind of criticizing how there's wires and pipes and everything everywhere. But at the same time, you have to have it open, specifically in this testing period, to really understand how much things are going to be flowing and where, and have access to it. You can't be hiding things behind, piping and have it all kind of connected without it really being accessible, especially for the first launch, right? So now that things are actually kind of tested, because you think about it, all this stuff is modeled in a computer, right? That's where we got the 102% thrust number from. But now that you actually have testing, I feel like there's going to be a lot of optimization and efficiencies that can be made, knowing that you have actual data now. And there will be slow, I assume, versions and updates as we go through time, especially if it's going to save them cost and money. I think the company is very much about efficiency and making things better. And I think going in line with, and the thing that I kind of related it to was, remember what happened with that big hulky battery that we talked about in the interview. They made efficiencies associated with that. And with that, you were able to get a couple percentage uplift on the capability of the Electron rocket. I anticipate you'll see them continue to do a lot of work about cleaning up and making this a lot better. Also, I think a lot of people are assuming that a lot of this wiring and everything will be exposed. You have to think a lot of this is going to be actually in the body of the rocket, right? The only thing that's really going to be visible is going to be the actual cone that provides the thrust, right? And that will be underneath the rocket, helping provide the thrust. So anyway, I think it's very good. It obviously did not explode. And I'm curious to see when and if they're going to distribute a video.
Hopefully soon.
Why do you guys think Rocket Lab is not putting out the video of the hot fire? I literally got this thought that they are like, we need to be different from all the other rocket companies, and they have this like super edited version of the hot fire, and then they're like, we're just gonna be different, we're gonna play it cool, and we're just gonna like put it out on Twitter. But it's so funny because when you open it, like almost every comment is like, where the fuck is the video? And give us like good sound. And I saw like Miss Iglesias commented on, like, you had Rocket Lab post and it had like 10,000 views, and then like Miss Iglesias was like, where's the video with the sound? And she had like 6,000 views on it, and then I don't know how many likes, but yeah, what's the tinfoil hat story here?
I don't think there is one. I mean, it took, if you look, just to do some investigating, right? Some very surface level investigating. They put Archimedes on the test stand at Cenis back in early May, and it took them until early June to release the video that they even put it on the test stand. So, we're 2 weeks after the hot fire test. Give it another 2 weeks, and I'm sure there might. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I don't know anything really, but give it another 2 weeks to a week for them to finally get the video out, and maybe we'll start to see something.
It's rendering. They need faster computers. It's like
they need to do Vince or Scotto. Scott's pretty good at editing. Maybe they can hire Scotto.
There we go.
You said Vince is good at editing.
Yeah, I retracted it and moved to Scott because I know you and I both don't do much editing. That's for damn sure. At least Scott does.
Exactly. It's because he's young at the YouTube game. He's young and enthusiastic. So, Scotto, what do you think about the engine?
I mean, I guess I was just surprised to see the number of tests, because it was, I think it was in that period where we were all kind of holding our breath, like, is there going to be a hot fire right away, or is there not? And I remember, I think it was quoted as 300 tests need to be done for a proper, like what Rocket Lab's doing with Archimedes. So I was kind of like, man, hundreds of tests, and everybody is like, the hot fire. But I'm like, well, how long does it take to do hundreds of tests? You know what I mean? Like 300, I think it was what was said. So to see that they're already at 100, I think that's a good sign. Like, granted, it could be a simple, like, is the sensor on? Test complete, like something very rudimentary, but I think it bodes well. And I am wondering too, as far as the video, maybe they're waiting for like a full duration hot fire, like something, not just like, hey, it's on and then it's off and then that's it, because I think people just right away snap to like, well, I just watched Firefly and they did 90 seconds. Why can you guys only do 5 seconds? Not understanding, everything that goes in between. So maybe Rocket Lab's just doing that, just kind of waiting for like one of the more final Archimedes tests, or one that's a little bit more into the mature stages of the engine development. And then they're going to just drop the full duration. That's my theory anyway.
Yeah. And by the way, regarding on this Raptor 3, comparing our Archimedes 1 to Raptor 3, I think it's not an apples to apples comparison, because again, like, this thing is on the test stand. And I think that just because you're on the test stand, you have a lot of extra pipes and sensors. Like, I'm no rocket scientist, but I would bet you money that these things here are like either valves or extra sensors to test certain things. Can you see my mouse as it's moving? Yeah. And then, like, you see that this pipe here that is like hanging on the engine, there's no way that that is a production item on, like, I've never seen a rocket engine with the, like some weird line hanging on the side of it. I think that that's also extra sensors. And then on top of it, like, Raptor 3 is like the third iteration of an engine, right? And remember that this engine has only existed in like CAD models and computers, and they even had to see if the theories even test out. And then you have to use this engine a lot, and then you can come to a point like, by the way, like, these pipes is not needed. We can shorten it here, but you need to go through that iteration. So I think it's not apples to apples comparison to say that Archimedes on the test stand doesn't look as sexy as Raptor 3 on a pallet,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm curious to see what the actual second Archimedes looks like on a stand.
Yeah. We're going to hopefully see. What? Do you guys have sound? Did you have sound now when I was watching this?
No.
Oh, how do I do when there's no sound? So basically, they installed a crazy big machine, a carbon fiber machine, and I was thinking we could look at this video together. I think I have to stop sharing and reshare it. Let me see if it will work. Okay. Is there sound? No.
No
sound?
If you want, I can.
Okay, I don't try more than, I don't know what is wrong. I can just maybe mute it for me, and then it can play in the background while we talk about it. So
I can share.
Yeah, let's see if that would work.
Just let me know if it doesn't.
We've done a lot of R&D throughout.
I hear it.
And space systems. We excel in the production of carbon composites here at Rocket Lab. We've done a lot of R&D throughout Electron and space systems, and now Neutron. So we know what we're dealing with, and we can produce a really high performance light launch vehicle using it. This AFP machine is the biggest of its kind in the world. It's standing over 12 meters tall and can travel 30 meters back and forward along the work cell. We'll be tasked with building the biggest structures of the Neutron vehicle. This includes the 7-meter domes and barrels that make up the stage 1 tank, and some of the 12-meter long interstage panels that enclose the stage 2. AFP stands for automated fiber placement. It's essentially an industrial process that massively accelerates the laying down of carbon fiber onto a mold to build large carbon structures. This is a process that's traditionally done by hand. So the key performance metric of a machine like this is essentially how fast it can lay out carbon fiber. This is really important because our large parts are made up of hundreds of layers of carbon fiber and thousands of square meters. So the faster we can do this, the better. We can pay out over 100 meters per minute of carbon fiber. Currently, it takes a large team several weeks to build a stage 2 dome, whereas this machine will be able to punch it out in 24 hours. The machine's been designed to accelerate in any direction at 0.2 g. It's able to stop on a dime, turn its head around in a fraction of a second, and start laying down carbon in the opposite direction. And it's little things like that that make this machine much better than the rest. This machine will be installed in our new facility in Middle River, Maryland. This is our space structures complex, which will be quite heavily focused on producing the large composite structures required for Neutron, but will also act as a center of excellence for composites for the whole company. So that's including space system structures and Electron composites and all sorts. So this machine also includes a fully automated real-time inspection system. This is really important for composite parts because they're made up of so many layers. So it'll search for minuscule defects as it goes along, and will notify the operators of any issues before it starts on the next layer. It means that we can sort of maintain our really high quality standards for spaceflight structures. Me personally as an engineer, I love machines, I love automation, and this is state-of-the-art automation. For the size of the machine, it's the highest performance thing out there, much faster at moving around than a traditional CNC machine, and there's some really clever smarts going on in that process to make sure that we lay down fast and accurate components.
So what did you guys think?
Cool.
That's the future. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's really interesting. I really want to know if they could actually outsource something like that, and actually provide manufacturing for that. I know obviously you're going to have neutrons, but I mean, if you think about it, if it's able to churn out things so quickly, and you are going to be able to reuse a lot of these rockets, let's say up to 10 times, you know, I'm assuming that means that you'll always kind of have one in rotation to be built in backfill, right? You'll probably have some that are, you know, 8, 9, 10 launches in, and then once they have their 10th launch, they'll be refinished. But I anticipate with the speed at which it's able to print a lot of those parts, if there's going to be a lot of downtime. And so it makes me think, I mean, with the printer so big, I'm sure there's a lot of applicability that can be used. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a lot of outsourcing of something like that, or just even potentially building a second one. It'd be kind of cool. I mean, I eventually assume Neutron to be flown out of more than just Wallops, you know, and so it might be cool to see it, you know, one in New Zealand and one in Virginia.
I wonder too
Well,
if
Maryland,
yeah. I wonder too if this machine is going to be the same one that builds the other structure. Like, do you guys know if this particular AFP machine, is this just for the neutron structures, or is this the one that's going to be for like satellite structures and whatnot as well?
Good question.
I think it must be only for the neutron. I mean, it was one, a neutron video, and two, the satellite structures, they're usually a lot smaller, right? So I think that the machine is too big for the satellites.
It might be too big for the satellites, but I don't think the R&D, I don't think will go to waste, and will definitely, I would say, play a part. So while you might have a smaller version that gets made or bought for satellites, I think that's part of the R&D piece that kind of lives on, right? It's like you invest for one, but you can use that R&D to kind of help supplement others. So I would love to see it with your suggestion, Scott, the use in satellites.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you can order your yacht to be made from this machine.
There you go. That actually would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, some people in the comments are saying that there's no reason it cannot make a small satellite. Yeah, okay. I mean, who knows? Who knows? We can ask them next time we have them here if that machine is like producing everything or just Neutron. And by the way, I'm happy if it seems like that the machine can produce too much Neutron parts, because what did Peter Beck say? That what he's worried about is not the demand. He's worried about being able to scale up production to satisfy the demand, you know? So it's only good to have a lot of parts coming down from the factory very fast.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we go on to the last Rocket Lab news before we go on to very interesting topics, like why we didn't get the SDA contract. Let me see. I go back to sharing it. I mean, okay, this one is going to be super fast. We had our 50-second launch. It went all good. Me and Matt live streamed it. Any comments on this one, guys?
No, a lot cleaner separation than
Yeah.
the one before. That's what I noticed right away, which was surprising because,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's like a problem solved or if the one during Electron 52 is kind of an anomaly, but I was concerned that there'd be a bit of downtime while they figured out, like, why did it kick out like that, or like what exactly happened. But it turns out that less than 9 days if you round up, 9 days later is all that it took for them to get the second Electron out already. So it's really crazy good turnaround time for that.
Yeah. I am still kind of curious because it's been a while since I've launched from Wallops. And one of the things I'm curious about though also is, and I think we might have spoke about this a couple months ago, is there a preferred launch window for, say, New Zealand, and if there's a preferred launch window for say Virginia? And it's like, well, you can expect, let's say, the majority launches out of Virginia to happen from, let's say, March to October, and the majority of launches for New Zealand to happen. And I don't know if that's the case, right? I just yeah.
I think I read somewhere that there is a launch fee that the FAA takes from the US spaceports. And I think that in New Zealand, that launch fee is like $30,000, while in the US, it's like $1 million per launch or something like this. So I would think that anything that they can launch from New Zealand, they try to launch from there. And then I think that there's certain companies who are like, we're not allowing our satellites to leave US soil because it's national security and, blah, blah, blah. It has to launch from the US. Then they're like, fine, we take this fee.
As I'm looking too now, Matt, there has not been a Wallops launch in the second half of either of the years. I'm not sure if that's just coincidence, but it's interesting.
But I mean, I know, I guess they're scheduled to be some because Haste is coming up in 3Q and 4Q. I don't know if we're going to get a Haste off this quarter or not, but there will definitely be in 4Q and 1Q. So
I don't think this quarter. I don't think we're getting a Haste launch because I think the next one is, what was that? Kines, right? Yeah, Kines in September is
okay. And there was only supposed to be 3, right?
Yeah.
So the manifest, I guess, has changed. So I guess that, because when I looked at the manifest, there was supposed to be one in 3Q and 4Q, and I guess they probably pushed it.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, basically there is one more launch this quarter. So we are like pendulum swinging. We had like the closest or record launch, like closest to each other, and now we go into like a very dry period. So we will not see launches for quite some time. I guess maybe that's why the stock is rallying. It was so funny when we were up 20%. I think it was Francisco or somebody wrote like, don't worry, guys, we will launch soon, and then the stock will fall back down again, and you can continue accumulating.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So now we come to the very interesting news. So we were waiting for an SDA contract. There was a lot of speculation that we would be getting the Tranche 2 gamma layer satellites assigned to Rocket Lab. And it got assigned to 2 companies. They were supposed to be assigned to 1 company. These 2 companies are, one, I don't know the name, but the other one is Terran Orbital. The York contract, that's the company, I guess. So yeah. And what's crazy with Terran Orbital is they were just bought up by Lockheed Martin. And the purpose of this SDA is that it should give contracts to new and untried suppliers, and then 2 days before the announcement, they get bought by a dinosaur. And even that buying out, I don't know if you guys have been following it. It has a crazy story and very bad looks because Lockheed Martin offered the shareholders $1 a share for all the outstanding stocks of Terran Orbital. And this company adopted a poison pill. They didn't want to take the offer from Lockheed Martin. And then it went, I think, 2 months. And now they took an offer for 0.25 cents 2 days before, or 1 day before they were awarded a 250 million contract. So what do you guys think about, I guess we can divide it into two. Like, why do you think Rocket Lab didn't get this? What's next for Rocket Lab as for contracts? And then what do you think about this Terran Orbital situation?
I think Rocket Lab, I'm under the impression that the SDA is probably looking at them like, this is your first foray into being a prime contractor. Let's just prove yourself first, and then we'll talk about the next tranche. That's probably the mindset. But then you pair that with them choosing Terran. I'm not sure about York, but like Terran in particular, and then all logic goes out the window, because unless I'm really misunderstanding something, they had like 3 quarters maybe of runway, and it's like a 4-year project, give or take. So I'm kind of like, I don't know who's.
I was looking before this. This is Terran Orbital's cash and cash equivalents in the bank as of June 40 when they reported. So they had 30 million cash in the bank, and they were burning. Let me see if I can bring up the cash flow statement. But they were burning 46 million per quarter. So they had 2 months left.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say, so I don't know how they landed on Terran being a sound option, unless you put on your tinfoil hat and then you consider, if Terran's like, hey, yeah, we don't have the liquidity, but we're going to say yes to Lockheed on this particular date, then it starts to make sense. But like without any sort of rumblings about Lockheed Martin, like, again, maybe I'm missing something obvious, but whoever made this decision for SDA, I'm like, what are you thinking?
Maybe the SDA is like all the space companies' balance sheets look like this, that you see this abyss coming and yeah.
So I think another way. Sorry, go ahead, Vince. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just wanted to say I highlighted here the net decrease in cash and cash equivalents is 41 million. I don't know if you guys can see it, and that's the first 6 months. Okay, so they were burning 41 million in 6 months, and last year they were burning 45 million. So they didn't even really decrease their cash burn. So they had they didn't have 2 full quarters left in the bank.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
No, it kind of goes back to what I had kind of looked at. I didn't really fully understand, so I did a little bit of due diligence. So I'm gonna spread that with the team here. So Tranche 2, as everyone's kind of aware, was kind of a contract bid to go out in 2023 by the SDA, Space Development Agency, which is a subset of Space Force, right? Bunch of fancy terms. That's 550 total satellites that need to be kind of used, hundreds of which might be alpha, some of which are beta, some of which are gamma, all of which have different capabilities. To date, we've only been 3 of the contracts have been awarded for about 55 of those satellites, right? So to put an example, and the reason why maybe Rocket Lab didn't get this was maybe the Photon, which I'm assuming is what the basis of a lot of the beta satellites that we won as prime contractor for the second awards, the 18 satellites that we're building, maybe those are better fit for, say, the beta sort of contract that they're looking for. A lot of what they gave out were for gamma contracts in this third contract. Whether that's important or not, I don't know. But what I can say is we're only 50 satellites into a 550 contract total deal. So there's a lot more contracts to be awarded out in the coming months, if not years, for specifically launch in 2027 to 2029. And then also coupling that with, this is just to build the satellites. It's not necessarily to put them into orbit either. And so there's another half of this contract that is yet to be even announced as to who is going to be launching these satellites, right? And Rocket Lab is definitely in contention for that. And that was discussed very at length when Adam went to TD Cowen in May, and they talked about how there's going to be so many tranches of these SDA contracts coming out, as we've now seen 50 out of the 550 being awarded. And the fact that you also can only launch about 18 to 20 of these satellites at a time. So you're talking about 20 odd, 25 launches that need to happen, unless maybe you're doing it with New Glenn, which maybe can do more. But I anticipate Falcon 9 could probably only do 20, maybe 25. I anticipate Neutron could do 15 to 20. So, I don't know, maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but you're talking about a lot of contract to be had here, and we're only on the third one. And it could be that, Rocket Lab's expertise doesn't fit well for the Gamma type satellites. So there's a lot of room left, and I'm very confident. And I think from our conversation last week or 2 weeks ago now with Adam and Peter, they also seemed very confident that future SDA contracts would be awarded to Rocket Lab. A lot of that's obviously speculative, right? I don't know anything more than you guys do, but I just hopefully give a little bit more confidence to the retail investors that I guess maybe we're hanging more, need for this SDA contract to have some sort of survivorship or something of Rocket Lab. I don't think that's the case. Obviously, we have $550 million cash on hand, and a lot more contracts to potentially be awarded. So just some thoughts there.
Yeah, I just want to say that there has been some comments here from Riley Young, who is saying that your numbers are maybe not correct, because there has been 480 satellites awarded. And Riley,
we're only talking about Tranche 2, my friend. Tranche 2 is 550 total satellites. Only 50 have been awarded. Not Tranche 0 and 1. Those Tranche 0 and 1 are completed. Those Tranche 1 was started off in 2020 when the contracting rounds went through.
Okay, good. That's good. That's probably what both Andrew and Riley are talking about. So good, very good clarification. Scotto?
Sorry, what was the question?
It was about the SDA contract. Why do you think we didn't get it? And what's the significance of that for Rocket Lab?
Oh, just because Rocket Lab's not proven as a prime contractor, but kind of like what Matt alluded to, maybe if it's not even necessarily SDA specific, just based on tonality alone, Rocket Lab doesn't seem too worried, like Adam in particular. Like, he just kind of seems like, they seem to be making attempts at larger contracts, similar in size to the one that we've already got. So whether that's like SDA specific, or whether that's an IoT setup for like a small country or something similar to that, I'm sure Rocket Lab's going to do just fine.
I agree. I mean, let's not forget that SDA is not the only customer for Rocket Lab. Like, we can get contracts by private companies, different governments around the planet. So there's a lot more government agencies in the US, in the alphabet soup, that can also buy from Rocket Lab. So as you said, Adam Spice seemed very confident, and it's probably nothing to worry about. I know it's not Rocket Lab related, but did you discuss the Palantir Titan contract? We didn't on Palantir Weekly, but we are for sure not gonna do it here. Cool. Okay, the next one, which really was a very interesting news for me. That is that it looks like this is not written in stone yet. It's not closed, and the contract is not signed. What the heck is going on here? Yeah, looks like ULA is being sold to Sierra Space. And the craziest part of this story, that in the newspaper article, it said Rocket Lab has shown interest, but declined something like that. That Rocket Lab showed interest, but they didn't get it here. Rocket Lab had also expressed interest. 2 people said none of the discussions led to a deal. Rocket Lab could not be immediately reached. So what the heck do you guys think Rocket Lab was thinking, sniffing around ULA? And what do you guys think about this deal? Because it's pretty surprising. Yeah, if you know these 2 companies.
I don't know them super well, but I wonder if, in the scenario that ULA was going to be broken up into smaller parts, maybe that Rocket Lab was like, hey, well, if you're selling, this machine or that machine, we're interested in that. Like, so obviously Rocket Lab can't afford, ULA is like almost the same size as Rocket Lab now. I guess Rocket Lab is a little bit bigger after this week, but I don't know what that could even look like if Rocket Lab were to, So I'm sure it was just
I think
they're looking at.
I think Sierra Space cannot afford ULA either, so I don't know how they're going to do it, but yeah.
What was it? I forgot what the question was. Sorry, I was looking at other data. That they might be right. They might have awarded more than 50, but there's still way more contracts of the 550 to be awarded. So they might have awarded like up to close to 100. It looks like maybe slightly more, but there's still a lot of room for other SDA contracts. But what was the question specifically?
The Sierra Space ULA acquisition, that it seems like Sierra Space is going to be acquiring.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And that in the article, it's highlighted on the screen if you look, that Rocket Lab expressed interest in ULA, but it didn't lead to a deal. And the question is, what the heck was Rocket Lab thinking?
Yeah, I don't think they were thinking. They were probably looking if there were select items that they might want to offload without a total, buying. But also, of course, everybody's going to ask what's kind of going on, right? I don't think just because they called and they said, and expressed interest doesn't mean they actually got to a table and we're discussing numbers back and forth, right? I was kind of relating it back and forth with somebody else that I was talking. They're like, we've been quietly hanging, like in terms of like dating, it's like we've been quietly hanging out for the past month or so. It's like, oh, I guess things are getting pretty serious with you guys. So it's like we've been in the talking stage for God. It's like really like. Yes, of course. If somebody just expresses interest, people are like, "Oh my God, Rocket Lab is going to buy them out! Holy shit!" It's like, no, it's not even necessarily remotely potentially what happened. Unless there was some sort of potential merger, but I don't know what happened. But just to kind of throw it off as a one-off in there, you don't necessarily know if they actually got to the table and they were actually signing documents to potentially actually merge or something of the like, or if it literally was a phone call with Peter. With the folks over at ULA to say, hey, do you guys have any thoughts about offloading any particular equipment? We'd be interested in looking at it. There's a large difference. And I think you can say with that, both of those statements that could fit underneath what you're talking about here. Not necessarily, the fact that they were going to buy it out for $2 to $3 billion or whatever the actual closing price was.
Yeah. And then the second question, what do you guys think about Sierra Space buying ULA? Because Sierra Space, this is my understanding of the company. They are a startup that is building a space capsule, or it's more like a space plane, similar to the shuttle called the Dream Chaser, that can land. They're planning to build an orbital reef or like a private space station. And I think that they have, they're planning moon rovers, or, I don't know what you call them, but yeah, moon rovers. And the analysis that I've read online is that basically they didn't have the keys to space. So where they thought that this was a very good acquisition for them is that instead of being effective, having to wait for SpaceX, then they can, launch their own cargo at their own speed. But the problem that I see with this is that the ULA's Vulcan rocket is a really expensive rocket. Like, yes, you have your own rocket, but it's still way more expensive than just going with SpaceX. And I'm like, are they planning to do like a Twitter, like what Musk did with Twitter, that, you know, you cut down 90% of the employees and, you know, you got the whole thing and you revamp the rocket? Because the Vulcan rocket is not even reusable. And I think that the engineers were only thinking about having smart reusability, meaning that the engine would catapult out and then it would come back with parachutes, and then they save the engines of the rocket. So yeah, I'm curious what, like, if you guys see the same thing as me, or am I missing something? Or yeah,
I don't know what to think. I mean, they must be having to change something pretty, you know, like crucial to the organization, because what ULA is doing obviously isn't cutting it. So they're gonna have to do something drastic. And what that looks like exactly, I'm not too sure. Matt, maybe you have a bit more insight than I do.
I don't, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, other than I don't know much about ULA other than it's quite expensive. They're not reusable rockets. They have a very beautiful facility. For any of you guys that haven't watched it, Tori Bruno does a really good walkthrough. It's not Everyday Astronaut, but I think it's like Smarter Every Day. I think he does a really good walkthrough of Smarter Every Day, and I think it's like an hour and a half's worth of material. And the facility is beautiful. The warehouse is beautiful. Maybe it's just they just have so much overhead. You know, I think that you have a lot of bureaucracy when you have large companies like Lockheed and Boeing and Northrop and all these guys. They just have so much overhead that sometimes creating something so small that doesn't have billions upon billions of dollars of revenue really just comes out because you have so much overhead associated with those programs. And I think that's just where it is at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised that if this was 10 years down the road, if ULA would be doing a lot more swimmingly because of the market being expanded. But I think for right now, they're just being completely undercut by SpaceX. They're being undercut by Electron. And I think that they originally were thinking that they'd be the only game in town. And instead of, I guess, ride sharing for a massive rocket like the Vulcan, you know, people are really opting for something that's half the price, which is Falcon 9, or something that's a 12th of the price, which is Electron. So, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you guys also don't see this, because for me it's not like an obvious, like, I mean, they could have bought Rocket Lab for F's sake. I mean, Rocket Lab doesn't have the rocket, like the big rocket yet ready, but it's, I think, cheaper or at the same price as ULA. I mean, I'm very happy they didn't buy Rocket Lab, by the way.
That is, so Francisco said something great. If you want to see enthusiasm, probably like matched with the enthusiasm of Peter, watch Tori Bruno. That guy is the real deal, right? Like, he's a real space cowboy. He knows what he's talking about, and you'll see his like enthusiasm and his knowledge when he did the walkthrough in Smarter Every Day. And man, I would love for Tori to join the board at Rocket Lab. I think the board at Rocket Lab has already stacked up a bunch of like killers in the industry, but if they get Tori Bruno on board, man, that's a game changer.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now we come to a very interesting one. We had whispers that Wall Street Bets is being involved in Rocket Lab. I was first very nervous when I heard this, because I really don't want Rocket Lab to become a meme stock, and I think it would hurt if you know, there was some meme craze and we would go up to $30-50, and the stock would trade completely detached from reality. So I did a little bit of digging. I really wanted to see what's going on, and keep in mind, I couldn't do endless research. I've never really been in Wall Street Bets Reddit forum, but what I see is that there's quite a lot of people who have made bets on Rocket Lab, And obviously, when the stock went up so much, like they are posting the gains. So they are not posting, that like, let's group together, let's go all in on the stock. It's more like we had a position in Rocket Lab, and this is what happened. But I'm curious to hear if you guys heard whispers about this, if you're worried about Rocket Lab becoming a meme stock, and what do you think of all this?
I mean, after ASTS this week, it kind of wouldn't surprise me if people are looking at like, what's the next AMC to this GameStop? So, yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting, but I don't know if it's beneficial overall. I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time in Wall Street Bets though, so.
I know that people are taking some screenshots and sharing it, and Rocket Lab's been up there, and I know Rocket Lab has been in Wall Street Bets before. I think the whole space industry got a big bump this week, whether it was Redwire, whether it was Black Sky, whether it was Planet, whether it was just a great week overall. I still think that Rocket Lab is massively undervalued for its potential, right? If you look at it from how much money it makes, obviously it's worth zero. But if you look at this forward potential, I think it has the ability to grow into something huge, and that's what you're really paying for here. And in terms of what its forward potential looks like, $3 billion market cap valuation is still undervalued, in my honest opinion. I think what I fear is, yes, I don't want the brand to be diluted with Wall Street Bets folks. If they want to come and play and make some volatility happen, that's fine. My fear is that my biggest fear, right, is this gets to a valuation of, let's just say, $15 a share, and then spikes right back down to $5 a share, and then it's classified as a meme stock forever, and it drags on the brand of the company. If it goes to $100 a share, that's fine, because I'll probably just sell. And, at that point, and I'll be like, you know what? Did I get my 50x return? No, but I got my 20, and that's okay. Right. And I got it in a way quicker time frame. But do I think that that's going to happen? No. But my fear is that I don't want to dilute the brand that Peter and them have been building almost for 20 years, and the value at which it really goes forward, because we saw what happened with a lot of other companies. Like, oh, it's just a meme stock. Oh, it's just a meme stock. And it drags on the stock. It puts a shadow on it. And,
Palantir is an example.
Palantir as well. Yeah, I didn't want to state it because, we talk about it so much, but it's the truth. If you're going to go, my beg to you, if Wall Street bettors, if you're going to go in hard as hell, so I get a 20x return, and so I get to sell out and just go focus on living on my island. And, then, you don't ever have to hear from me again. But don't come in here, run the stock to $5 or to like $10, and then just like go away and then ruin the brand, right? That's the exact opposite of what I want to happen.
Yeah. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I don't know if I have too much else to add. Like, I don't think it'd be good for Rocket Lab as a whole, but
yeah, I think both versions, what Matt said, would be horrible, because I think if the stock would spike to $50, you would have a lot of Rocket Lab bulls that would sell out very understandably, because that price would be so crazy compared to the fundamentals of the company. And then I feel that we lose like a very good community, because you don't know if those people come back when the stock price goes down, like back down, and then the stock would forever be this. Yeah, it would have this stigma of, maybe not forever, because Palantir also overcame it after a while, but it was not easy to overcome that stigma.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, if you don't have Wall Street Bets dragging on the brand, when we do get a successful Neutron launch, everybody's happy, right? And then same thing with when we get cash flow break even, it's the stock is then going up and doesn't have the drag of a Wall Street Bet overhang. And my only hope is that the $7-8 range is all we see. People say, okay, everyone's kind of happy with $7-8. It subsides. And to me, the hope is that because of Wall Street Bets, if that were to happen, you get maybe 10-20% of those folks that are like, actually, it seems like a really good long-term hold. It's not like some crappy company that isn't going anywhere. These guys actually have a very bright future, actually are generating revenue, unlike some of these other space companies. and they stick around, and they hold the shares, and that'll obviously help us from a long-term perspective because there's only 498 million shares, so, or 480, whatever it is. But regardless, it's below 500 million. So, we have a couple hundred people, holding a couple thousand shares. You start adding it up pretty quick. You're in the millions of shares. And, the more people you have holding, obviously, the longer and better the fundamental basis, right? The stock price only goes down if people aren't willing to sell, right? So I don't know. I just fear that, but I know regardless, even if there is a drag from Wall Street bets or an overhang, the stock will prevail from it, especially 5 years, 10 years down the road as they perform. I just don't want to be fighting that battle for the next 2 years.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so now we come to the end section. So I'm very curious, what do you guys think caused the upswing, and where do we go from here? And I know, Scotto, you trimmed your position a little bit. That's crazy news to me. I want to hear your thoughts around it, like why you did that, and where do you see the stock price going from here?
I mean, I guess the simple answer is like, what is it, 30-40% in a week, or like 100%? Like, what was that? When we were in the mid threes, like not even 3 months ago, I think. So it just kind of opened, and I trim regularly too. Like, it's not like it shouldn't be a huge surprise. It's not like and it was like 20% of the total position. So it wasn't even like it was anything too hefty, but it was just one of those things where I opened the app on Friday and I was like, it was at 18%. And I was like, wait, on top of yesterday's, I don't know what it ended on, like 10 plus, right? And I'm like, okay, this is a little bit, and I've been following ASTS the day before, and I'm kind of like, oh, I think I know what's going on. And look at Planet Labs is up 14% and Redwire's up 12. And I'm kind of like, oh, everyone's just looking at what rhymes with ASTS at the moment and kind of piling in. And I've long held the kind of stance that Rocket Lab is maybe a little bit overvalued. And granted, every stock's overvalued. It's a matter of how many years ahead you're willing to pay, how much growth you're willing to pay for. But yeah, like buying Rocket Lab at $4 a few months ago and then seeing it go snap up like it has, kind of like just having in mind what happens when ASTS bursts. And I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings, but maybe it doesn't happen too, right? But I'm looking at ASTS with it was $900,000, yeah, so not even $1 million this quarter. Annualize that, it's 3.6 million. Like long story short, they're trading at a price to sales of 2,321. ASTS. And maybe somebody's out there screaming at their monitor that it's justified. I don't see it. And to even simplify things too is like, what's preventing either Rocket Lab from doing something similar, or the elephant in the room, SpaceX, from doing something similar? The answer is not a lot. And I just think once this space bubble bursts, if it does, I'm sure Rocket Lab will snap back down a bit. So if it's if it does run away on me, like, oh, I'm comfortable still. Rocket Lab is still over 10% after the trim, so it's not like not like I'll be upset.
No, I'll have to say, Scott, I don't blame you, right? I don't agree with you, but sure, I don't blame you, right? And yeah. I think that this goes back to, and I see some people chattering in the chat, I think that that's right for you, right? So trimming 20%, if you're comfortable with that, that's right for you. I personally am on the mindset, and I've been in a situation before where I've done something similar, where I've trimmed and then I get stuck in this. And I believe you. I honestly agree with you. I do think we'll pull back into the fives. I really do believe that. I have firm belief that there's not a catalyst yet that should push us into the $6-7 range. I do believe we'll come back to the fives. My fear is, and I've done this before personally, And I'm here. I hope everyone's listening to both sides of this and they can choose for their own, and it's not a binary sort of thing, right? There's so much gray in between as well. But I've been stuck so long sometimes where I've done the same. I trimmed a little off the top and then I get in this, oh, but it can go lower. Oh, but it can go lower. Oh, but it can go lower. Because I agree with you. I think you'll be able to add back lower into the 5s, but you might be sitting there, not you particularly, but somebody out there, including myself, would be like, I'm gonna wait for 450. And then 450 never comes. And next thing you know, we go to $8 and $9 and $10. And it's like, shit, I never, my intent was right. My heart was in the right place. I trimmed. I was going to take some of that, buy 20%, 30% more shares with those winnings. And unfortunately, I got greedy. And next thing you know, it runs off on me again. And it's happened to me so many times over the past 10 years since I've been investing. My thing is I would rather sacrifice, me personally, right? I would rather sacrifice the pennies in the short term. I think I'm up like 20 or 30 grand on the entire position. I would rather sacrifice the short term to guarantee that I'm there for the long term, for when it goes up a couple $100,000 and reason being is because I've come to the conclusion for myself that I've invested close to like 100 or so thousand in Rocket Lab. I forget what it is. Maybe it was 90. I don't remember. And I'm comfortable with that. And if it goes to 0, that's okay. What I would not be comfortable with is in 10 years, 15 years time, knowing that I had sold 30 or 40% for a couple tens of thousands of dollars and knowing that could now be worth an additional couple $100,000. And to me, my portfolio is now, I'll just be blunt. I think a lot of you guys know I'm chasing my second million. So like for me to kind of come in and try to trim for like a $20,000 or $10,000 profit, to me is chasing pennies when I'm really should be focusing on the long term, which is tens of dollars, if not hundreds of dollars. So I don't want to get caught in that trap of looking too short term. But I think for folks that are, I think you dabble a little bit more in a lot more stocks. I choose like 4 or 5 big convictions and I try to stick with them. So everybody's investment philosophy is very different. So I encourage people to listen to both sides and not be like Matt's right or Scott's wrong, right? Or Scott's right and Matt's wrong. It's really dependent upon yourself and what your investing style is. And I encourage people to take that and think about it and sit on that, because to somebody, to half the people, I might be right. To half the people, I might be the biggest idiot in the world and I should have taken profit. But I think what you did is right for you, and I'm happy you made some money. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm definitely the old man in the room when it comes to like valuing and just like I can't remember who the quote's from, but it's like, if investment is exciting, you're gambling. And I've always held that one close because I'm like open my phone in the grocery store and I'm like, oh shit, like let's go. And I'm like, wait, if I'm this excited, it's probably a sign that maybe it's time to trim a little bit, So just try to take the emotion out of it, really. But yeah, like you said, Matt, to each their own. We do things very different here between the three of us, and it's nothing.
The only comment also that I can add is that I also can't blame that you trimmed, and we're learning. I think Matt has the most experience out of the three of us as a stock investor. I have the. I like before I was long-term investing, I was doing a lot of swing trading, and then Palantir is my first like very long-term investment where I was like, okay, I buy this and then don't look back. And that experience, because I think that like Palantir, when I bought it, it went down and then it went sideways for more than a year and then it like blew up, and Rocket Lab seems to like, so far it's almost a carbon copy that like I bought it and then it went up a little bit and then we went back down to the threes. It's like the mandatory suffering, when you own a long-term stock. And what I'm trying to say is, when Palantir started running, I remember speaking to Arnie Trezzi. I don't know if you know him. He's one of the biggest creators. And he was like, okay, I'm an analyst. Based on my numbers, it's overvalued here. I have to trim. And I was like, but why would you trim on your position if your thesis is intact? You're here from the long term. And he was like, I just have to do it, And then the stock ran to 20. And at 20, he was like, I was an idiot. Like, if I wouldn't have trimmed, like, he counted out like he had 100% of his portfolio in Palantir, which is crazy to begin with. And then he trimmed it back to 50. And he was looking at, like, if the other 50% of the portfolio still would have been in Palantir, and he would have rode it to 20. And I remember having these, like, Matt, you can attest that this did happen, that, when Palantir went to 20, all of us was like, this feels so overpriced. We don't know who's buying, but we are not selling, And the stock is 32 today. So even at those high prices, like, the people who were buying, and it felt like, like you're almost an idiot at buying those prices, those people are doing very, very well, and I think that this is the risk that you're running, that you're like, if you're really long-term investing and you trim your winners and you hold on to your losers, I think that you like, it doesn't feel like the math will be on your side, when you have like a 20x on the stock, and that's what you're playing for.
Yeah. I think it's to me, I've always wanted to run this one out to where I think it's the final trajectory is, and I could see myself selling a portion when it gets to the $20 billion or $30 billion range, if it ever gets there. But to me, like I stated, like I knew willingly going into this that I was willing to carve out $100,000. If it goes to zero, it goes to zero. If it goes to millions, it goes to millions. And I wasn't, and I state that, with intent, right? I don't think that I didn't put in $1,000 and think it was going to millions either, right? I think I sized the position knowing that if I did it appropriately and it does get to something that I think is reasonable, like a $50 billion valuation, with haste, with Neutron, etc., 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, that it could be worth millions. And, I don't want people to be listening here and be like, oh, I put in 1,000, it's going to be worth millions. It's like, no, I don't think we're going to 1,000x your money here. Do I think you could 20x with your money here? Yes. And so, anyway, that's just another piece of it as well. But I do see some people talk about risk management. I agree. I think there's a lot of other space companies that can come out of nowhere and really swipe Rocket Lab in the face, and I could lose a portion of that $100,000 that I initially invested. That's for damn sure, right? Everyone thought BlackBerry was doing really well, and then Apple came out with the iPhone and slapped him right in the face and told him to sit down. So, Stoke is doing really good stuff. You have a lot of other competitors that are doing phenomenal, and it could very well be that somebody comes up and starts stealing that second place market share away from Electron.
Yeah,
I didn't think the commentary on trimming would be so controversial. I don't know if you guys are.
I think it's good. I don't think there is no hate. Like, I think that people just give their opinions, and it's very as far as I see.
I've moved to a portfolio strategy of, like, majority of my money now is going to be in the S&P 500 and like index funds, and I have 5 to 10 really big bets that I take. And so, like, for example, the top 5 stocks in my portfolio is Palantir, Rocket Lab, Google, Amazon, and Shell. Shell, I've actually been thinking about trimming because I think there's going to be a recession. And if there's a recession, oil price is going to go down to the shitter, like $40, $50 a barrel. And obviously it'll give a good entry price for Shell, or most oil and gas stocks, that is. But that's about $500,000. Those positions right there. And so it's about, I guess, if you don't include, and those are individual stock positions, I should say. I have my ETFs like SPY, and I have some NASDAQ 100, etc. Those are about the same size, $500,000. And then I have 401k. That's mostly the S&P 500 as well. So, you have, to me, a large portion of the portfolio that is dedicated into like 5 or 6 highly convicted names, and then the other 2/3 of it is kind of on autopilot with just being invested in the S&P. And that's just kind of how I've grown, right? Originally I was investing 25 different stocks and trying to make all of them work, and it just got to be too much with all the different conference calls you had to keep in touch of, and then you get super excited about some, you lose interest in others, and next thing you know, you take your eye off the ball and it's down 20%. And you could have been, selling it like you stated, taking that opportunity to trim, when you're up 20-30%. I think it all just depends on what your strategy is, right? Some people don't want to put any time into the stock market, and then they just need to focus on saving money every month and putting it into something like an index fund that's extremely hands-off. And, and it just goes back to it's personal finance. And, you really need to invest how it works for you. So.
Yeah, but I see what you meant. The comment section is pretty hot about this trimming.
Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion, but hey, there is 50 shades of gray here, and you do you, and we just keep it respectful here, and everybody is the CEO of their own portfolio.
Wow, I like that.
Cool, guys. I think this was a fantastic conversation. I think we can establish that all three of us think that the price is going to pull back because it's not really sustainable to run 35% in 2 days. And that was on top of like a 15% jump after earnings. But the future is bright. I think we all agree on this. And yeah, thanks for everyone for being here. I don't know if you guys have any last final words.
Yeah, somebody said, well, we all agree that it might pull back, but and then Mark said, or it might never pull back, which is also a scenario, right? We get an SDA contract and it never pulls back, right? Yeah, or we get a big contract for Neutron and it never pulls back, or we see the hot fire test. Everybody sees the hot fire test, and now everyone wants to be in Rocket Lab. But somebody wants you to share your Twitter feed, Vince. I don't know why. I know we did it on Cashflow Chronicles the other day, and it was kind of funny.
You shared my Twitter feed.
Not your Twitter feed, but like, you have a For You Twitter
feed. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's what he means by that, or if there's like a specific thing he wants to see on your Twitter feed. But mine's really sad. Like Chris Patel showed his, and it was like wild shit. And like, I was like, you get this on your For You, and mine's just like investing talks. So yeah, I'm like, I don't know if Chris is out here liking crazy stuff, so more of it shows up. But for me, it's literally just like investing.
Same. Yeah. Okay, cool, guys. Thank you so much for being here. See you guys next week. Very interesting week coming up. We're gonna see if we get this pullback or not. The description to the other gentleman's channel is in the description box below. Please make sure that you subscribe and support their channels. And yeah, see you all next week. Ciao, ciao.